republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Compton.
Here.
Emmeline Baker.
Here.
Farrell. Here. Happy.
Here.
Keller.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Mayor Fallon.
Here. We have some additions and amendments to the agenda. I would like to move up Kevin for 7B. We'll move that up between 4 and 5. And then to add a quick report, add it would be 7D, I guess it would be. Denise is going to do a quick report from Ken Brigham on updates on the family. Those are the only 2 amendments.
I'd like to add budget committee meeting to other matters. I got the budget out, so I just want to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to a meeting.
Okay. Any other amendments or?
We talked about roll carts. Is that something we can revisit that quickly?
I have that in my report, but we can add, we can definitely add it.
You want to add that, Councilor Pete?
Or we could just talk about it as it relates to what he had noted in the staff report. That's okay.
Sounds good. All right, well, so with those amendments, I need a motion to approve.
Before we approve the minutes, I'd like to address something in our bills. It is check number 14428. There was $300 for sponsorship of Gorge Canoe Club for the Vortex Gorge race. And first question, did the port contribute also to this?
Jeremiah?
That I don't know.
And I kind of question, why are we sponsoring kind of a private club?
So that was a jog my memory, that was a tourism item.
Oh,
Yes, sorry, it took me a second there. That was tourism sponsoring that event. So it wasn't that, that was part of the last meeting or meeting before, kind of that $2,300
yeah,
discussion.
I realize that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
when I saw it in there,
Yeah.
I wanted to check it to see what it was.
Yeah.
And it did bring in a lot of tourism, people from Hawaii and elsewhere.
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments.
I move to approve the agenda with the amendments.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote?
Councilmember Compton.
Aye.
Emmeline Baker.
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye.
Happy.
Aye.
Keller.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye. That passes. Okay. So we've got that. That's a public hearing.
Yeah, we gotta do consent agenda.
Oh, thank you. Adoption of consent agenda. We have city council minutes, city council work session minutes, and the ratification bills of amount $200,885.10.
I motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll second that.
Roll call vote?
Councilmember Compton.
Aye.
Emmeline Baker.
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye.
Happy.
Aye.
Keller.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye, it passes. All right, now public hearing.
No public hearing.
Okay. And Kevin, we graciously will move you up in that.
Okay,
Yeah, otherwise you might be here till 10, so.
I'll happily get moved up. Sounds great. Right here?
Yes, please, yes.
Very good. Okay, so,
Yeah, the main question was kind of the how we, tier 2 went from $30 to $60.
okay,
Right, guys? Is that kind of the main question? Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah, I thought I would, yeah, so, I talked to Jordan ahead of the meeting, and that's, was the main question that he conveyed, and that sounds great. I thought I'd provide perhaps a little background in advance of that, talking a little bit about the BPA contract, how the rates are structured. I think that's important for setting the context for, I think specifically questions around the tier 2 rates. Before I jump in, and so I have some just some background remarks that I wanted to give, and then happy to take questions. I think that was really the main thing. Be here to field any questions that you all have. Before I jump in, I do have to say that we are in the middle of a 7I rates proceeding at Bonneville, a rate case, which means that we have legal restrictions around the sorts of things that we can talk about and that I can take comment on. We call those ex parte restrictions. I can talk about the rate design. I can talk about what is going into our proposed rates, but we can't talk about the merits of our rates at this point until the rate case concludes, which it won't until July. So I can't talk about whether, and can't take feedback on whether we think the rates are too high or too low. The proposals, I can't talk about, what's going into those rates, whether that's right or wrong, or, good or bad from folks' perspective. So I just needed to set that expectation up front. But as far as, again, what, is proposed, I can talk about background there. And again, the rate structure, that's all fair game. So just needed to state that up front. That sounds good to go from everybody's perspective. Okay. Okay, so we're in the waning, maybe third of the BPA power contract. It continues, the current contract and the current rate structure continues through September 2028. At that point, it expires and we'll have a sort of a redo, a new set of contracts. And we're just, for folks' context, we are in the process of regional policy development discussions, and ultimately that'll kind of give way to actual contract development, but that's all part of the next contract. So really what I'm focused on tonight is the existing contract, which goes through, like I said, 2028. So under this contract, we have what we call a tiered rate design. Every utility, Cascade Locks, is one of our 130 or 140 preference utilities, has a tiered rate contract with us. And basically what that provides is access to tier 1, and then any power beyond tier 1, which we call tier 2 price power. Tier 1, basically, that every utility gets sort of an apportioned share based on their load in or their energy usage. The benchmark year for the current contract was 2010. So your load, your energy usage in fiscal year 2010 established your share, your tier 1 share, or your high water mark is what we have coined that. And basically what that provides is an amount of power at that existing cost base. And tier 1 basically is the rates we establish at tier 1 are based on the cost of the existing hydro system and the one nuclear generating, it's called Columbia Generating Station, and the one nuclear facility. So that portfolio of resources establishes the tier 1 cost pool. And about half of the power that we're expecting Cascade Locks to purchase, we sort of look at all our utilities on a year-to-year basis. Approximately half of your power we expect to be priced at tier 1. Tier 2, then the cost basis there is market. That's the open wholesale market, and that varies, has varied with time. But we are expecting about half of your power to be served with tier 2 priced power. Let's see, and I'm happy to take questions as we go here, but let's see, anything else about tier 1? I'll just say tier 1 again, that's the cost of the existing system. Those prices have been very stable from 2010. Actually, service took basically, we signed contracts, and that was 2010 was the baseline year. Service deliveries took effect in 2012, and basically power prices for tier 1 have averaged around $30 up to today. It's about at $35 a megawatt hour. We're projecting and have proposed essentially flat rates for the next rate period for tier 1. Go ahead.
In 2010 wasn't our high water mark or our base at 2.4.
Approximately, yeah, 2.4. And you know, your tier 1 share, it will hold at about that. There's adjustments every 2 years basically on the capability of the tier 1 system. To the extent it goes up, your high watermark share would go up. Your tier 1 purchase would go up a little bit. If it goes down, you know, it moves with the system. But essentially 2.5 megawatts or 2.4 is a good kind of baseline of where you are. So tier 2, now, like I said, tier 1, your high watermark share, anything above that, essentially load growth beyond that kind of 2010 base mark or baseline year, is served at tier 2 price power. And we are projecting or actually have established for this upcoming 2-year rate period starting in October, that begins our fiscal year 2024. You're looking at about 2.3 or so average megawatts priced at tier 2. Tier 2, like I said, is based on market prices. We have seen tier 2 prices coming out of the gate, like in 2012, they were about $50. So they were comparable, a little bit below where we're projecting them to be or proposing them to be in 2024. But they were kind of in that $50 ballpark. They came off quite a bit, actually. They came down as late as like 2018 or 2019. Saw them come down to the $20 range. Actually got below tier 1 in that period of time. Since then, we have seen market prices go the other way, take off again, and we are projecting or again proposed in the rate case. We'll see where it goes, where it's finalized, but have proposed tier 2 prices again based on market to be in the $60 range. $63 in 2024, comes off a little bit, 62 or $61 a megawatt hour in 2025, based on market. So questions? Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, I just wanted we covered a whole lot, so I appreciate let me kind of interject here just to make sure that I'm following along here. So we did a high watermark analysis in 2010, and if I understand you correct, anything that's below that high watermark is priced at tier 1 pricing, and anything over that high watermark is priced at the tier 2 pricing, which is based on market. Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
in 2010, then we wouldn't have paid anything in tier 2. Everything would have been tier 1 pricing. Is that also correct?
Yeah, I think for a good portion of the contract, to date, you've been paying largely at tier 1 rates.
So obviously, I think we're probably not alone, and we've had a lot of development and growth since 2010. And I guess, when does that get reassessed as far as the high water mark, or will it?
It is subject to a reset with the new contract.
And that'd be 2028.
It would take effect, in our fiscal year 2029 would reflect whatever the new rate design is. Just for folks' information, we are, basically discussions in the region seem to be moving us in, the direction of another tiered rate, contract. What the, discussions to date have kind of focused on is 2023, this year, as being sort of the new reset year.
Got it. Thanks. That's clarifying. So potentially we could do another analysis this year that would reset that high water mark. And that would be
Yes.
used for the negotiations for the next contract when they renew. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, but through 2028, through the end of September 2028, the existing high water mark and tiered rate construct, and that high water mark essentially locked down.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate kind of letting me make sure I'm following along and so far.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Kevin, I have a question for you. So what are we about 4.1 we're using right now?
Yeah, I think
Is that-
it's in that ballpark.
So
That's
in
our
the- in-
projected load forecast. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what the, I know I'm gonna say this wrong, but the Bitcoin, or do you know what they're using currently?
The existing, I don't know details,
Is that-
from Bonneville's perspective, it's just the city
'Cause I think
as a
that's-
whole.
Is it over 2?
They're around 2, I don't know the exact number.
So they're contributing to a big portion of this 4.1. So technically, we could be, the high water mark was, what'd you say, 2.4, 2010?
Again, the high water mark varies with the size of the system, but I can tell you for fiscal year 2024, we're looking at approximately 2.4.
So other than if we didn't have that Bitcoin, then we would be actually a little bit under the high water mark. Would that be right?
4.5, yeah, you'd be about right at your high water mark if you took 2 megawatts off the top, yeah.
Now, we've got, actually 2 cryptocurrency operations in effect right now. One, from what I understand, is about 2.2 or 2.3, and the other one is 0.7 to 1. So we're looking at over 3.
Good chunk of that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so again, to the extent that that's growth, energy, usage, growth in that since 2010. Yeah.
So is there a way to keep some at tier 1 and then the others at tier 2, the higher cost? I ran into somebody in the Dalles, they're talking about something.
In terms of, yeah, I mean, we look at it all from Bonneville's perspective. Again, we look at the city, the utilities, usage, total retail load, usage, let's say 4.5 megawatts. We don't have visibility, or unless, I would say, perhaps there is, if you're talking about the Dalles, Northern Wasco, or Umatilla, those big loads have clicked over into a different category called, this is a statutory based crossover. Anything above that represents load growth greater than 10 average megawatts in a 12 consecutive month period. That clicks over to a new category called a new large single load. And so that is outside of everything we're talking about here.
That's what.
Yeah, so those loads are not eligible for either tier 1 or tier 2. Yeah.
So it would be up to us to crunch the numbers, and when the new business comes in and in the contract with them, have them pay the extra costs. Because you see us as a whole town, so it's up to us
Single
to break
entity,
it.
yeah, right. So, I mean, to the extent that you want to differentiate, who's paying what, that would be,
Right.
that's your,
Right.
yeah, your business. How you establish rates, as long as Bonneville is getting paid,
Right.
that's your
Yeah.
business.
Bonneville ever assist with that?
You know, what we assist with is providing the cost projections that, you know, we've provided and we'll be providing an updated set, we call it the, you know, rate impact model analysis. Basically, it's a month-by-month projection of what the cost will be for the, you know, an upcoming year. We'll be providing an updated one of those with the conclusion of the rate case in July. Beyond that, we don't, you know, participate in rate, you know, development or cost of service analyses, you know, in terms of retail rates. You asked that question.
So that I think the number we got was 570,000 was the anticipated net change as a result of the tier 2 price increase. And my question was how that was calculated, but I think if I'm following along and you're looking at the city as one customer, are you just looking at anticipated usage for, you know, 2023, 2024, and what our high water mark is and how much of that would then be tier 2 and then that price increase and how that's going to, I guess, you know, that's how that was calculated?
Yeah, so at risk of going one level deeper, I'm gonna try to stay out of the deep weeds, but I'll go one level deeper. Tier 2 purchase obligations, the amount that we're talking about here, for example, in 2024, we've already calculated that the tier 2 purchase obligation for Cascade locks could be 2.13 average megawatts. And there's a comparable amount in 2025. The way those purchase amounts are calculated is based on a forecast. So whatever, and there is a process that's run every 2 years in advance of our rate case. And we'll be running it again next summer. Like I said, it happens every other year. And it's one of the primary inputs, or a primary input into our rate case. But essentially what happens is we do a recalculation of what the tier 1 system is going to do. Again, is it going to go up or down relative to, you know, where it is today? If it's going up, every utility's rate period high water mark, their apportioned share, their tier 1 access, it's going to go up or down. So we calculate a new utility specific, we call it a rate period high water mark. That's that 2.378. That's the new projected amount for 2024 for Cascade locks. We then apply the then current load forecast over the top of that new rate period high water mark, and to the extent that there is load forecast above that high water mark, that's your tier 2 amount. That's your above rate period high water mark load, and you've elected to put that entire obligation onto Bonneville to serve. That then is served at tier 2. Again, that amount for 2024 is 2.13. The math is pretty straightforward. Again, 4.5 megawatts minus your 2.4 gives you the balance, more or less 2.13. And so this will happen again next summer. So, you know, to the extent that we have new load information to forecast or to update that load forecast with, assuming there's additional load, that would be used in that rate period high watermark process to reestablish tier 2 purchase obligations for the next 2-year rate period. And that one would be 2026 and 2027, possibly 2028, because we sort of have an odd lot to end the contract. So maybe a 3-year period that hasn't been decided yet. Is that helpful for how we, good, yeah, that's wading a little deeper into the weeds. But I think it's important for understanding how the tier 2 amounts are established.
Yeah, it really just how where the high water mark came from, and then how it's pretty straightforward.
I have a question. So when you're calculated, when the high water mark was calculated, was that half of the power usage that we were using, or was that the 100%?
It was essentially 100% of what your load was in 2010.
Okay,
So that balance is load growth. You know, and I will say from a proportional standpoint, that is a significant amount of additional, I mean, your load has doubled. And we don't have many utilities whose loads have doubled under the new under the existing contract, which does give you guys a lot of tier 2 exposure relative to most customers.
so hypothetically, we get another 6 megawatts of customers and our power need goes from the predicted 4 to 10 megawatts. Would most of that be considered under that tier 2 pricing, or
Would
would
all
there
be
be
anything,
or would there be a, like, or would we have to wait for a re-looking at the high water mark so that it gets adjusted? Or would it ever adjust
Yeah.
that much?
between now and the end of the current contract, any additional incremental load will be a tier 2.
Okay,
So let's say you get up to 10 average megawatts from the 4.5 today, it'd be 10 minus the 2.4.
and everything else is everything.
And so that's 7.6 if math serves would all be served at tier 2.
And if we, how does that high watermark adjustment work then? Because if it's not based on our current loads, then is it based on? Because you were saying, talking about a kind of market
Oh,
adjustment.
yeah,
of
sorry.
our high water mark, I wasn't.
That is unrelated to utilities or to the city's loads.
It's,
That adjustment, that every 2-year kind of wiggle amount, up or down, that is entirely a function of what the federal system, the generation, the dams and the nuke, what they are projected to do for that 2-year period.
So Kevin, I think BPA as a system generates about 7,000 megawatts.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one big pie.
Yep.
And then it's cut into slices and we get 2 megawatts. That's our slice.
That's your slice. And if the size of the pie goes up, your 2 megawatts may go up a little bit. If the size of the pie goes down to 6,900, your slice will go down.
okay.
That's
how
the
that-
only thing that changes the, utilities high water mark underneath this.
And there's, and again, getting into the weeds, for the 28 contract, that number might bump up. I think the discussion somewhere around 70 or 7,300, somewhere in there.
There is discussion of it. Yeah, I mean,
And-
I'm
and
not
the-
sure
The
that's,
smaller utilities like us, they might kick everybody up to about a 5 megawatt high water mark, which would be great, but if we're growing, still, I mean, we're still have exposure, but none of that's finalized yet.
So does that change with different administrations, or does that stay with the governing body of BPA?
what the new contract and rate design looks like, that's ultimately a Bonneville, administrator's determination what the new deal looks like. And it will be in effect as long as that contract is in place. So irrespective of administrations, at the national level, it is established and locked down. I mean, we're hoping for the current contract is a 20-year deal.
Yeah.
We're hoping for something comparable. 19, 20 years is kind of what the discussion has been.
So you mentioned earlier too about this year might be considered the year that you look at where our high water mark is again.
Yeah,
And
post 2028.
Post-
Yes.
So if we don't make our growth that we hypothetically could get in that time, it'd be, the number you'd be looking at is that 4-ish megawatts
Yeah,
as a high water mark.
I would just say it would be reset this year. I think it would be, the discussions have been a broad negotiation, and it's not as simple as saying you get whatever your load is this year. There's adjustments in there, I'll just say, there's a grand deal being struck between utilities who aren't growing and those who are growing. And it will likely be something in the middle. That's kind of what we're hoping to establish. At PPC, you guys are members.
Yeah, we're members of all. I mean, we're one of hundreds of utilities. There's us, Puget Sound, Clark County, North Wasco, pretty much all of the Northwest into Montana. So we're a tiny fish in this discussion, but they are
Yeah.
considering us tiny fish, so.
I would just say there is talk of a 5 megawatt sort of, for lack of a better way to describe it, sort of a starting point for smaller utilities like Cascade locks. Probably there's wiggle around that, but that in combination with just knowing that it would be reset is probably the best I can give you in terms of specifics around what that post 2020.
Yeah, I was just
like.
Trying to understand.
I
how
think
this
you're
works a
saying
little
if
bit
we
more.
add all of these cryptocurrency data centers this year, will it help us in 2028 when we go to reset our high water mark?
Anything that is in place as we speak, the load growth that's, in effect now,
Now, okay.
it will contribute to, the fact that you have, your load is doubled, it will contribute to a higher high water mark in the post 2028 deal. Yes.
But for our average consumer that has been in tier 1, we can keep them in tier 1. And when the city adds usage by these high energy users, we can collect the tier 2 off of them.
We're blind to how you structure your arrangements with your retail customers. So yeah, absolutely, that's within your purview
That's
to
something we're
establish
looking at,
those
right?
rates. Yeah.
And we can't be sure, just to say this out loud, that there won't, that our residential customers won't accidentally sometimes go into tier 2. Am I accurate in saying?
That-
So,
that is, it's just, Dawn only looks at us.
No, but I just thought it was said that we'll try to keep all of our residents in tier 1, and I didn't want that to just sit out there.
So the tier rate structure and our rate structure for customers are two completely different things.
Right.
We pay Bonneville, they don't care what we charge our customers, as long as we pay them. How we divvy it up between residents, commercial, high users, that's on us.
Right, and therein lies our need to.
It's why we need a rate study.
Exactly. Kevin, can you,
I think it might address yours. Kevin, can you address that if let's hypothetically, we get these new businesses that come in that draw quite a bit of power, and then they come in, and so we've negotiated that, or they're gonna go up, we're gonna use that power, and then all of a sudden, maybe for whatever reason, the company goes defunct and says, okay, so now we've promised, let's just say we've promised 10. And now all of a sudden we're using half of that. So can you talk about how those rates and how that could impact the city?
Yeah, so, I would just say, again, we call it the take or pay purchase obligation. That take or pay purchase amount is established through this rate forecast driven process, the rate period high watermark process every 2 years. Let's say deals are done, we know with certainty that load is, things are in motion, we're gonna plan on it, 100% of it being.
Bought it,
We get it in the load forecast. It's there by next, let's say, usually it's around May, is sort of our timing for having that forecast in place, give or take. but it's in the forecast, we set those amounts. Then let's say 2027, the load goes away. You would be on the hook to pay for that amount of power that was established. There is a billing mechanism that would soften the blow. Basically, what it effectively does is it would credit you for the amount that isn't used. So, you know, let's say you can only use half of what, let's say it was 10, and your load ends up only being 5. That 5 megawatts would be subject to this billing mechanism that it's a different rate. It is a market-based rate,
Right.
which we are proposing, and to date, it with a couple of exceptions, which I think did happen. But let's say for what we're projecting in the next rate period, that remarketing, it's called load shaping because it shapes to your actual load. It is lower than that $63. So you would still, essentially, you would face the sort of an exposure, a financial exposure for the delta between load shaping on a month. The rates vary by month. But let's say, on average, it's less than that 63, which is the case. That would be your exposure.
So to kind of put it in plain terms, and correct me if I'm wrong, so we buy it.
Yeah.
Say we're gonna buy it, but then we're not gonna use it, but we're still held to that amount.
You're held to that amount.
And then you.
It'll be on
and
your
then
bill.
It'll be on our bill, and then you try and sell it.
Yeah,
market it, and then it depends on how much you sell it for, so
it's no.
it could be.
We know, there will be no question as whether or not we sell it or what
the
we
value.
actually recover for it.
Right,
Bonneville carries the risk there. We have reserves, and we may do better than load shaping, what that rate is, or we may do worse than load shaping. But load shaping is, once the rate case is final, those monthly load shaping rates that would apply in that event, those are locked in for the 2 years. So we would know, we could do an updated, Jordan come to me and say, hey, that load is dead. I need to know what that looks like. And we could run the numbers and tell you with much better certainty what that would look like.
is that clear to council on how that works?
And also that you said it goes for 2 years, so it changes all of a sudden in year 1. We'd only be faced with 1 year of load changing, right?
Yeah, technically it's whatever your load on a monthly basis. So your actuals come in and it's, let's say your actuals come in higher than that 10 average megawatts. That load shaping rate applies, in both directions. It will it'll charge you or credit you depending on what your actual loads do relative to that load forecast that say your tier 2 amounts.
Yeah, so every 2 years there's a reboot
Yep.
on the power
Yep.
agreement.
Yep.
Okay, then also, if the company failed like that, it would be up to the contractor, like the city, to make sure they had some sort of agreement with the user to have a reserve money to cover that shaping for the 2 years.
Yeah, I think to the extent it's, appropriate, we often counsel or suggest that utilities, exercise diligent, management of those situations, whether there are stranded costs, obvious stranded costs, or, sort of a remarketing cost, whatever it is, good credit standards are important as well. So yeah, I think those are all good things to have in play.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, in your arrangements with the user.
Just to help me understand it, thank you for this question. I do know one, landlord and homeowner who has solar power. And this city has received a grant to maybe put solar power. Does that power going back in the grid help us with our rate structure at all or anything, or?
Yeah, I mean, so in general, if we're talking solar, small
Yeah.
solar, it reduces the city's usage,
Which is bad if we want to show.
which is, I mean, again, if we're worried about tier 2 exposure, load growth, getting the utility deeper and deeper into tier 2, anything, whether it's energy efficiency, I mean, that has been the region's cheapest resource. And, you know, Cascade Locks has done its share of EE over the years. But I think you could argue that small solar would do the same thing in that it reduces the
Keep more
utilities
into
load.
tier 1.
Yeah, keep you closer to tier 1, right? And, you know, technically there are size limits, in the BPA contract, it's like 200 kW is the current threshold. Anything below that, we are blind to it, and that, you know, you can have as many small solar arrays on residences or schools or whatever, as long as that is smaller than 200 kW. Just FYI. Yeah.
Okay, just wanna, Tom, did that address your question?
Yeah, I just have one here, one for Jordan, real quick, but one, when you go into the larger one you're heading for, is the expectation of the next tier to be higher than the tier 2 one when it's done, or lower than tier 2 one? So the question is, if you want to make your gains and you worry about jumping into that next year that you guys are working on, what do they expect of that next year?
The large,
The large,
like Dow's usage one, where they had the 12,
Oh.
over 12.
Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah.
do they expect that one to be more expensive than the tier 2 power?
Yeah, so I will say that Bonneville does offer power to, I think, both Umatilla and I think those utilities are both. We only offer to customers a certain kind of product types, and I believe those do qualify. We sell power for NLSLs at what we call the NR new resources rate, which is almost $100 a megawatt hour. So yeah, way more expensive than tier 2. And to date, no utility has chosen to purchase that from Bonneville because it's been so expensive. I will say market prices have continued to climb, such that NR is looking more and more competitive. Sort of a side note, but yeah. So yeah, that's the short answer. It's a separate higher.
So if we got, but the only way we're gonna get into that is to go with a lot bonds.
Well, if
Or 10
you
megawatts.
had 10 megawatts, a single facility, single business or operation,
You're gonna jump in.
that grew greater than 10 average megawatts in 12 months, that would click you over.
So
Yeah.
in like that situation, that's you wouldn't look at the city as just one user, it'd be the city and that large user, or would it be different?
It gets a little, so if there is a user that
Meets that criteria.
could potentially, load expectations are such that it's flirting with growing 10 megawatts. And there's transformation in place that could physically allow for that, then we monitor it. We put meters on that specific load and it goes in, it's a quote unquote facility, a potential NLSL. And we watch it closely. There's an established start date and end date, and it's known with certainty whether or not it clicks over within that 12-month period.
Okay.
Can I ask one?
Well,
Jordan, one
Pete's got a
thing?
question.
Oh, I'm
All right, we're about 40 minutes into this presentation, so I just want to keep kind of a reminder for everyone, if we could. Pete, do you have a quick question?
We've been talking a lot about consumption and usage. I was just wondering about BPA and production. If there's any plans for increased production, which could also increase capacity for tier one for your clients and customers.
So I would just say in terms of tier one, the resources are known and locked down, the quote unquote tier one resources. So, let's say the 35, give or take, dams and the nuke, it would take efficiency improvements to one or more of those identified generating resources. And if those do go into effect, and the nuke is a great example, there is discussion as we speak of, an efficiency up rate, making some investments, and that unit would generate more than it does today. That is a way of growing the tier one system. But that
Got it.
Separate acquisitions of new resources or purchases from resources, that's all tier two.
I don't want to belabor this because I know we've been going for a long time, but we see a lot of, the windmill's not turning, so it seems like, is there production that's not occurring? That kind of is the perception, I think, by some people, is that, there's possibility or potential for more production than we're currently seeing.
Yeah, well, we don't, actually, we do have one or two wind resources that most of them have expired. So for the most part, the tier one resources are the dams and the nuke. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or? Kevin, would you like to add anything?
Oh, I think I hit, we took it sort of free form, but I think I hit all of the
We did.
highlights. Maybe I would just close. I know there were questions around why tier two and maybe market has taken off. And, I would just say in general, this is a very unique time. I mean, in one word, it's uncertainty in the market right now. There's projections of a lot of, demand, a lot of load growth, potentially electrification, region-wide is getting a ton of play and support. And that is driving demand longer term. At the same time, you have weather events that are becoming more extreme. And those put a premium on firm resources that can meet those peaky loads. And at the same time, of course, we are retiring fossil fueled generators and replacing them with more intermittent wind and solar and renewable resources, which again puts a price premium on firm, power that you can count on. And that's really what's driving power prices right now. Yeah, the last thing I would say is we just issued an RFO to, we were looking to sell energy. We were a little long in 2024. And it was over $115, $130 a megawatt hour. An entity picked up a flat block of energy for that year. So just to give you a sense for where market is, it's kind of crazy out there.
So it sounds like collectively, all the usage is just kind of dragging on.
Region-wide, yeah. It's supply, demand, at the end of the day, yep.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin, I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so appointed committees. Emily.
So this would fill our last open committee spot. Budget would be filled, tourism would be filled, planning would be filled. This is the last one.
Hi,
Any questions or you wanna?
I don't know, what do you guys want? I'm Emily. I've lived here for almost 2 years now. I bought the house that I was renting. I live right up on the Pacific Crest Trailhead. I plan events for my living and do a lot of different festivals. And I just really want to be an active member of the community. And I think that I could benefit our tourism committee by helping with events and yeah.
Anybody have any questions, Farleigh?
Has, your schedule worked out for the schedule of the committee?
I have a pretty flexible schedule, so I'll make sure that it works.
All right.
Yeah, they're supposed to meet the first Monday,
Oh,
the first Monday of the month, but
That's
maybe
6 p.m.
every other month that doesn't happen, so.
Yeah.
I appreciate you applying.
Thank you.
So, a motion to appoint Emily?
I move to appoint Emily Sealy to the tourism committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Crompton,
All right.
Emerald Baker,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye.
Happy,
Hi,
Geller.
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye. You're on board.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you
I'll
very
make
much.
sure to do a good job for us.
Thank you very much.
Right, next-
Thank you for showing up.
Emily, next
Yeah,
step.
I'm really glad that I
Oh,
was
next
here.
step.
You'll get a letter from the city officially welcoming you to the committee.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank you.
you guys.
Okay, next one, approved resolution 1486, council 2023-24 fiscal year goals. Anybody have a chance to look at those?
So, yeah, same thing presented last meeting. This is just making it official.
I have a couple of comments, if I could. Okay, so for the repairing the city hall roof, since this is something we already did, should we mark any of that complete, or are we just gonna wait and say that it's, because we did get the grant, right, for the roof?
One,
Okay, so we're
Is
leaving
it
that alone.
two-part?
yes, so we got the grant, and I think this is in my, we got the grant for the solar panels, the battery, and to install the backup generator, but we can't install those until we replace the roof.
Okay.
And that's the grant we're waiting for.
Okay, and then on the increased law enforcement presence, it says December 2023 is a completion date. Is that something you're gonna be working on? As we get closer to that date, reaching out to the small cities, or? do you
Yeah,
have-
yeah.
Have a plan for that?
Not really a concrete plan, just kind of really have a presentable idea of what options are out there by end of this year. So when we do start to make the 24-25 budget, we can start building towards it.
Okay, and then on the Parks and Rec, I noticed it says April 2023 is in green, obviously, because that was last month.
So I met with, Mark from Hood River, Parks and Rec.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, okay. And lastly, for the, I was wondering if on objective 4 for research cost to refurbish current city hall, if we could just pencil in perhaps register as a historic building to, in that process. Did I lose you? It's under the city hall refurbishment.
I just, the double-sided pages confused me.
Yeah, because I noticed that wasn't in there, and that was something that we've talked about since, about maybe becoming registered as a historic building. So,
If that's something council wants me to pursue, I'm more than happy to. I don't think there's any costs associated, just my time. And again, is that a route council wants to go?
I just don't want it forgotten.
Yeah,
It's something,
yeah.
it doesn't need to be done now, I just kind of want it stuck.
I guess my concern is without explicit direction from council, I don't want to just go plodding along in my own direction.
Sorry about that, that's everything I have.
So Tammy, are you saying you want it added?
Well, I think so, when it gets to the point, because it's lower on the list, when it gets to the point that we're seriously thinking about options with the city hall, then that needs to be included as an option to help us make those decisions. And to maybe get grants and that thing, you know. I'm just afraid without it mentioned in there that it'll get forgotten, yeah.
Does anybody have any objections to that? To adding that language?
And did we, I just forgot, Tammy, in the data that you looked up, we are considered a historic building, so we sort of have to register.
We do not have to register, but even if you're not registered, you have to abide by it as if you are. But if you do register, then you open up windows for grants.
Okay, great. Yeah, then I would agree to that.
So can we get a approval with the addition of adding the notes Tammy talked about?
We need to make a motion for that, though, because this is changing the resolution, because we're changing the document underlying the resolution.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to maybe objective 3.
To include pursuing, making City Hall an historical building to open up grants later. I don't know how to say that.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I second.
Would that be objective 3? Is that what we're calling that?
I just put it in with 4, but under research cost to refurbish current City Hall.
Yeah, that would work. I mean, like I said, there's more financing options with that designation versus not.
Correct. Yeah.
Tip.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, on Forest Lane, administration and public works. With the passage of 2095, and we are now able to get traffic radar vision tickets.
Yes, I need to talk to the sheriff about that. I don't know if it's us or the sheriff's office.
That's the sheriff, and that was up to the community.
Well, who would be enforcing it? Who would be getting the revenue from it? I mean,
Well, yeah, I think we'd have to talk with the county commissioners.
Yeah.
And also with the justice court and see if we get the tickets, go through the justice court down here to where we would get more of the revenue instead of doing it in the Hood River where they get.
what was that number again?
2095. House Bill 2095 was signed by the governor.
So what are you saying? You want to add that into the Forest Lane?
Into the Forest Lane. You get more traffic control on Forest Lane, reduce speeds.
Oh, it would definitely help, yeah.
So are we voting on Tammy's first and then this, or making the changes and voting on the whole resolution?
Let's have to make changes and make it as a whole. So someone needs to state. Why you say?
You want me to-
Say it. Go, Butch. The whole thing.
Amend the resolution number 1486 to include making City Hall historic register and to add a traffic control device and a radar trailer or fixed cameras according to House Bill 2095. For Forest Lane.
Those are the goals.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, is there a second? I second it. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Compton,
Aye.
Ellen Baker,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye.
Happy,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye. It passes. Okay, next on scope and company for electric rate study.
Okay, so I went back and added, got timelines from the companies, and reached out to both LOC and other associations. They focus on legislative and advocacy items, regulatory and legislative advocacy. They don't really do these studies, and it really is these private companies that kind of specialize in this stuff. So the cost did change, I just added the timelines. I'd still recommend EES Consulting, I know it is 35,000 is a pretty penny, but, as you heard from Kevin, we're gonna need it, our prices are going up.
Can you summarize what the difference of option 1 and option 2 is with EES, the 35,000 as opposed to the
So
12,000?
the 35,000 looks at our entire department, from, do we need new trucks? The cost of our staff, inventory of our equipment, the rates, the whole shebang. Option 2, the 12,000, that looks at what our current rates are, how much one of those rate is gonna go up, and what we need to change those to. That's all it does. It doesn't factor in any of the actual operations of our department. Just what rate, how do we increase our rates to cover our new cost?
When's the last time the city did something as a whole, somebody did
You
it?
know, we looked at this, we couldn't
Did they ever done it?
find,
Like a-
I'm sure they had, Tom, do you remember?
I remember, they did, but, within the last 10 years.
I wanna say it's about 2014 in there. I know they did a master plan, but
Yeah, they did,
I don't know if a rate study would include.
I don't recall the rate study, I know to look at the department itself.
Each got a hand up.
Well, yeah, it was enlightening to hear the discussion from Kevin. It seems to me, based on what he said, that based on our current electrical consumption, if we didn't have the cryptocurrency going on down at the port, we would be still below the high water mark. Is that what you guys understood as well? So it seems like the cost of development and growth is what's pushing us to use more of the tier 2 power. And so I think we just have to figure out a way, like, I think this is what you're alluding to, Butch, is making sure that that cost is passed on to the commercial consumers that are driving that tier 2 usage, not to the residential clients that are the new homes that we're putting in. They're going to be all well insulated, wrapped, double pane windows, efficient heating. They're probably not going to be using that much power, and they're probably not going to be that much of a change compared to even what's we're reviewing tonight. What was that? I think they were asking for 3.1 megawatts, right?
New homes are gonna be putting in EV chargers, which take a lot of power.
How do
Well,
you
I mean,
state that? I mean,
Because the state is already, or the governments are already telling us, we have to get out of our gas-powered vehicles and buy EVs. So most of these homes now are gonna come with EV chargers. Whether these have them or not, or the individual homeowner will put them in. So those are gonna draw more power.
how is that any more than doing a load of laundry?
It's not.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that running your dryer to do a load of laundry is equivalent to charging your car. It's the draw of electricity.
I did talk.
but I
to
guess
our-
I was just gonna say, I mean, if we're not using fossil fuels, we are using electricity. There is electrical demand for electric vehicles, and it's in addition to the laundry they're already doing. I mean, I wouldn't, I don't know the specifics of how much power they actually draw, but there is going to be a shift from, and they talked about that at the LOC Spring Conference about how the fuel tax is failing because people are moving towards electrified vehicles. That's part of what Kevin was talking about. We're moving towards more of an electrified community. But I still think that the residential usage is a very small percentage compared to the industrial power demand. And that's consistent with what we also heard from Mark Johnson. I think you were there for that conversation, Butch, where they're talking about how efficient homes are. They don't really use that much power compared to the industrial power users.
Carrie has a comment. She has an EV in her house, $15 a month increase. This was a couple months ago, a lunch meeting with our electrical engineers, back of napkin math. 45 new townhomes would equal about 0.75 megawatt demand. Not knowing all the details, that was rough guess.
I did some research just to help me understand it better, and one consulting, planning organization sort of said that, oh yeah, they had somebody working on this because of litigation against a city for rate changes who didn't do a study. So then they had to do it after litigation from people who were not happy. So it made me realize the value of doing this, and I do trust our administrator. 35,000, just like you, Tammy, I'm like, can we get what we want for the second option? And maybe not, maybe we need to.
Does that have to come all out of 1 year's budget, or would they
It'd
like?
be 1 year's budget, yeah, because they have it down in about 3 months.
Is there any way that we could have our rate increase help to cover the cost of the rate analysis?
Yeah, if we can ask them to, yeah, we can build it into there.
I mean, I feel like that would be the right way to handle it, if we could recoup the cost of doing the analysis through the increase in fees and have that, spread out over time. I think that would be the responsible way of passing, I guess, doing the right thing for our community and making sure that we're taking care of the needs of our utility as well.
So instead of 570, it's 605.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's either one rate study that's gonna encompass vehicles, everything.
Yeah.
Or just simply the power, right?
Correct, just simply the rate change.
And so if council votes yes for 35,000, if council votes yes for 35,000, do we have the ability to pay 35,000?
Oh, yes, so the electric department has money.
Okay.
Yes, the electric department is doing very well.
Sometimes if I can write a check that I don't know
No,
about.
they are doing very well. This increase in price though will definitely cost quite a bit.
Right. Okay. Brenda, you have a question?
My question would be is, Kevin gave council a lot of information and those community members about if you go over the 10 megawatts, that what they charge the people, it's going for like 100, 150 a megawatt, whatever that was. I would think that our city, as small as we are, and our city administrator could set and figure out like, hey, we could charge, all the businesses are gonna pay the higher rate, because obviously the residential are not causing the tier 2 to happen. It's the businesses where they have a different rate. You get your electrical department. I'm pretty sure that we could probably replace most of the vehicles. I'm sure that they've not been maintained. They need a new cover. I mean, you could go around and kind of do your own survey of what you need to do and save the 35,000 and maybe use that toward, because you gotta pass the cost on, and it's not fair for it to go to the residents. And I don't think we should spend 35,000 going to do a rate study when I believe we have the ability to know what we need and what we don't need, and what we're paying and what we're gonna charge. This is a business, you guys have multiple businesses here, and I think you should be able to make that decision. And I understand maybe doing it down the road whenever you got your books all together, because it's easy to say that you have the money, but do you really know that you have the money? Like you.
Well, I do know these rate studies are pretty labor intensive and they're detailed. And unfortunately, everything is expensive in government. I'm learning this. Everything is crazy expensive. And so it's either we.
And what I heard when I was talking to this agency was that it does help protect us from liability. If we aren't the experts.
Right.
We aren't, I wouldn't want to put that burden on the jury. And I'm glad to hear that's in our budget.
So if something, well, hold comments, please. But Jordan, if you say that it's in, we have money in there, and it doesn't, my question is, would it, If we vote for this rate study, does it impact someone else? Are we taking money away from someone else?
No, the electric department has a contract services line.
Okay.
And so the electrical portion of the budget is a separate, I mean, I don't know how to, it's separate from the general fund.
Yes, it's an enterprise fund. It pays for itself. It actually pays for the general fund. too.
Yeah, no, totally, and I mean, yes, so within that, there are reserves and there are line items within the electrical
Yes.
budget that
Yes.
allocate for this funding.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And it is, and maybe you can't share right now, but it is your professional opinion that this sort of study will help us to be more efficient and,
Yes,
yes, in the future. So we'll be then saving maybe money by the data we get from this.
And it sounds like the one we had is over 10 years old, and as we all know, just in the last 3 years, the cost of doing business has gone through the roof for everything. So it may be beneficial, I know we don't want to spend it, but it might be beneficial coming out of COVID and to find out where we are. That's up to council if you, I guess.
I guess my is the rate study gonna help us in determining the future impact of industry that comes into the community?
yes. So if you look at option one, it does talk about forecasted revenue requirements for future 5-year period. It talks about, capital expenditures, operating expenditures, supply of power. You'll look 5 years into the future. I'm assuming they'll talk with BPA and pick their brain as well.
I guess my question is, it seems as though we're at the mercy of the port and what negotiations they interact in, and they begin with various corporations and industry that will use a substantial amount of this power. And so how will this consulting firm understand or get that knowledge, or do they have access to that knowledge?
To the port's contracting, or?
I guess, I mean, my concern is data centers come in, data center takes up a huge chunk of our data, of our electrical rate. Are they going to help us understand how to deal with that?
Yeah, oh, yes, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what they do.
It seemed like they, they do mention that they're going to be using primary components of revenue, requirement, cost of service analysis, and rate design to study include. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, I'm lost here. Work directly with the city staff to gather consumption data, information on potential customers, and provide updates on current financial conditions. You see that there, Eric? It's under option one, the last sentence of that first paragraph. I was also looking at the next proposal. It wasn't EES, it was the FCS, I think it was. And yeah, FCS group. They had a huge list of cities that they've done this with. I didn't see that with EES. Do they have prior experience doing this with other small cities and municipalities?
Yes, so yeah, they've worked with, it's on page 3 and 4. I mean, they're definitely, I think they work on, bigger than us. Everyone's bigger than us, but the Clickitat County, Umatilla, North Wasco, again, all bigger than us, but they're all local, regional co-ops. There you go.
I guess I did see that listed here, but it was only like 4 or 5 examples of recent project examples. And then I compared that to FCS, who had, look at all these cities. And they show revenue requirement, cost of service, ratio design, other analysis. They've got a ton of experience. It just seems like they have, maybe the other company, maybe they do as well, but they just didn't talk about it as much. But it seemed like they definitely have a lot of experience working, doing this sort.
And so Jordan, if you could concisely say why you think EES option one is better than FCS. I guess it's still expensive, more expensive.
Part of it is price, and part of it is, I couldn't find it anywhere, but I'm pretty sure we've worked with them in the past. Talking to them, they seemed to have the best idea of what we're looking for, the kind of scope of work we needed. And then the recommendations I've gotten both from Clickitat, PUD, and Northwestern. They gave glowing reviews of them.
And it shows on here, on the, Clickitat did hire that FCS group too, so they might have more experience with a variety of them. If they were recommending EES as over FCS, then maybe it's better for us. And also,
I didn't ask them about FCS, just what their thoughts were on EES.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're also like balking at the idea of 35,000, and the other, the comparable option for FCS is 48.5 and some change. I mean, that's significantly more than 35. That's
And a longer timeline.
and a significantly longer timeline. We won't know for 6 months, and
Well, we have 6 months.
yeah. We're trying to change things sooner. And 6 months down the road, it's the middle of winter.
They were in November at that point, yeah.
That's if we started right now, which we're probably not starting immediately. This takes a little
I
time.
know, yeah, and whoever is selected, I would notify tomorrow. I'm sure it would take them a couple weeks to get mobilized.
So we're talking like middle of November, December, when
Yeah.
one finishes versus October.
Yeah.
That's
So
the way-
not talking about the timeline, but as far as the costs go, they did say in their proposal that those were, they kind of selected different services to put them in there, but those were just things they put together that could be modified. I mean, they did say example, those are just example 1, example 2 are just examples they put together, but it's completely customizable. It sounds like based on what our needs are. Is that right, Jordan?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, when I'm trying to put together the cost comparisons, it was definitely a little tough with them. They have an à la carte menu and kind of pick at what different options you want.
Got it. Thank you. And, I appreciate the discussion on this because I wanted to make sure that we were looking at all the options. That I felt like the third proposal, I didn't get as, I didn't feel like it was as much there that was specific to kind of how they're going to go through the process. So I really kind of was looking at those two, the first 2 proposals.
Agreed.
Kevin?
The 35,000, since it's really becoming an issue because companies are coming in, which we want, is there any way that the port can help us with that? Since it's their businesses that are making this issue come up to begin with, or is there a way that a discussion can happen with the port so that they can pass some of this 35,000 over to the new businesses that are going to be needing the extra electricity in tier 2?
I can approach them.
I don't know,
I don't know where
just-
to go, but I can approach them.
I don't like the idea of passing it on to residents, the 35,000.
Well, we wouldn't have to necessarily right now. There is money in a fund
Right.
that we wouldn't have to add any rate necessarily. It would cost the city, but
Yeah.
And to be fair, Tammy, I guess I wasn't saying necessarily we had to pass it along to the residential clients. I was just saying as we're looking at putting together our rate adjustment, that we look at factoring the cost of this analysis into this rate analysis. So that could be something that's entirely passed on to the commercial, not the residential, in my opinion. That's what I was suggesting.
Thank you.
And we're getting to the point where we're talking in millions of dollars in sales, not in tens of thousands. So $35,000 for our electric department is, I mean, it's not a drop in the bucket, but it's not half a bucket.
It's a lot, but it sounds like it would get us a clean and accurate start and looking toward the future. And we're doing the new strategic plan, and we are looking at new construction or adding new clients to the port. So it feels like it's the right time to do it.
And it would factor in that construction we're doing. If we get the plan that myself and the port are hoping to get, we have 2 substations, which means we have 2 substations to maintain.
Which is a
It's not,
factor of money that we need to factor in that is new to this year. And will we have complete ownership of that new substation by the
Yes.
time that this starts going, so that that can be factored in?
Yep.
I guess I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was somebody in the audience, Jeremiah from the port had his hand up. I think he was hoping to get some discussion in before he got a motion on the table.
No, the motion was good. I didn't mean to interrupt the motion. I just thought it was worth mentioning that there is one cryptocurrency company that is working at the port, that is down at the port right now. They use less than a megawatt. The larger one is in the other business park that doesn't belong to the port. And then the MOU that you guys are looking at this evening is also not a port-driven business. So a certain amount that the port is driving all of these customers that are requiring this power usage isn't necessarily the only narrative here. There is other companies within the city that are forcing this on your guys' hands as well.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sean, would you like to continue?
Motion to accept the quote from EES Consulting for $35,000 for a 2 to 3 month timeline to
Great stuff.
complete the full cost service rate study design study. To be billed to line item 51-405-62110 contract services / miscellaneous.
I second.
Discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Compton,
Aye.
Emmeline Baker,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye.
Happy,
Hi.
Keller,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye. It passes. Okay, next. Pardon
So thank you, council.
me? Okay, next, approved tourism support informal RFP for distribution.
So the contract for the current tourism support staff expires on June 30th. This is a new informal RFP that will go out. What makes it informal is that at some point if the math works out, about 4.5, 5 years, we'll reach the $150,000 mark, which is when an actual bid, like we did with the IT systems, would kick in. So before it reaches that $150,000, we have to do a new informal bid. So that's why it's informal. And the reason I'm doing a bid and not quotes is I would have no idea who to actually reach out to get a quote for this work. So I'm gonna fly it out there and see what comes to us. The biggest changes, increase the max hourly rate from $20 an hour to $25 an hour. The position will still report to me. The initial contract would be 2.5 years to November 31st, because having it expire in the middle of our tourism season is kind of a pain in the butt. So I would kick it to end of November and kind of explain the informal RFP process, and I attach the ORS.
Can you help me understand the difference between informal and formal?
So formal is like we did with the IT service, we put it out, we get sealed bids, we review them. We open them, review them, score them, council would select. This, it's essentially we're asking for quotes.
Okay.
We have to redo the process when we get to $150,000. The formal one, there is no limit.
And on this, how long will the RFP be out?
1 month. Yeah, so we have to actually extend the current person's contract. I talked to our city attorney, just informal agreement via email would work. The city asking them to extend it, we cover our bases. We put it out, we get responses, tourism committee would look at it, make a recommendation, send it to council for final approval. So I'm hoping if the timeline works out, which it sounds like it may not because of tourism's schedule, they were scheduled to meet July 3rd, which is that Monday, they're probably pushed back a week, so the whole process is probably pushed back 2 weeks. So we're looking at probably beginning of August before the new person starts.
So tourism would make the recommendation, we would not look at these
Well,
projects.
so you guys, it'd be the same we're doing with the IT. I'm going over them with staff. We will make our recommendation. We would still present all of the options to you and you would pick. So tourism would do the same.
So we need a motion to approve or not approve, like motion, or is there a motion?
I move to approve the request for an informal solicitation for proposals pursuant to ORS 279B.070 for the tourism committee contract support work.
Second. Discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Councilmember Compton,
Aye.
Emily Baker,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye.
Happy,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye, that passes. Okay. Next up, approval, MOU between City and Good Life Realty LLC.
So this is the cryptocurrency, the data center. So they do cryptocurrency. They would also house in computers that would run analytics for companies, renderings for CAD drawings, things like that. So I mean, it would be heavy electrical use. As it says in the MOU, they're expecting, once phase 1 is up and running, about 3.1 megawatts. They'd love to get to about 12. They haven't given me a full timeline of when they would get to 12. They do know it depends on us finishing our electrical system update. And so this is not the actual power agreement. This is just an MOU that we and the company will work in good faith to come to that power agreement. It does require them to put down a $35,000 deposit. They would cover any of these attorney fees, any extra work that requires actually getting power to their business.
Who is Good Life Realty?
It's 2 gentlemen,
Georgia?
Bo Turner and Colin Cruz.
Is it Georgia?
I actually
Yeah,
don't.
if I Googled it and I was having troubles.
Right.
I
So,
think that they're from Bend.
I think they are from Bend, yeah.
well,
They own something here already.
They are the Stumptown,
Stumptown, that's it, yeah,
yeah, they are the cryptocurrency that's currently
yeah,
in the old renewal workshop.
yeah.
So what they would be doing is they would be moving out of there and into the new place, and they would close up the one there. Also, these guys all have already previously put in an application to the port or to put out there, and the port turned them down on the fact that their computers require a soundproof wall because they're basically in modulars out in the open. So
with MOUs, I would like to see discussion brought to the council first before an MOU is even drafted. So I have I'm not comfortable signing an MOU where we've just seen it, I don't, and to hear from Good Life Realty, I think would be helpful. Otherwise, there's a lot of stuff in here that's missing, a lot of information, it's kind of approving something blindly. I would like a little bit more detail, where exactly it is, how their systems are ran. You know, to go over, but you brought up some good points. And so I think that information is lacking in here. And before, it's a slippery slope to agree to 3 megawatts and then for more, when we don't even have a full understanding of the business. And also if what do we max out, a little over 7 right now? That puts us up over 10. Or when we go up to 12 to 14, I know we've heard we can put fans on it to increase it, but I'm not a fan of gambling with what we have. And rigging something up if we had to get to the point where we're putting fans on our little station that we have currently. Just kind of the analogy of, it's a different conversation with Kevin, but the analogy is if you have a car that go 100 miles an hour and you don't put your foot on it and just keep running it at 100 miles an hour because your car's going to wear out. So it's the same thing with the substation, just because it can do between 12 and 14, that doesn't mean we max it out at that. And I just want everyone to be really careful on how we do increase the megawatts.
I guess my question is how is this? Did I get told?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
How is this different than what would have happened with Roundhouse?
Oh, there's big differences.
Wouldn't we have entered in an MOU with them in this exact same fashion?
Yeah, but we already know something about Roundhouse. These guys, we pretty much don't. Roundhouse is creating jobs. There's no job creation here. There's like 2 people. That's it. Roundhouse would have gone from their initial building about 3 megawatts, but that 3 megawatts was been built up over a couple of years. And then they would have looked to expand past that. So, and Roundhouse was looking at investing into the community where these guys aren't investing anything.
I don't want to get into the discussion of Roundhouse. I guess my concern wasn't this exactly what we would have done with them? If that process, we wouldn't have entered into an MOU with them?
Oh, we would have.
We did.
But not like this.
I mean, I sent them a draft of MOU. I mean, we hired Cable Houston. You guys approved time. They
So-
have a draft of an MOU. They just
Right.
got back.
But
So Cable
anytime-
Houston is going to help us with this MOU as well?
Correct.
Okay.
But I would like to get to a point though, where before a draft is sent, council should have the ability to look over that draft and approve it, yes or no, to forward it on. So, kind of like the part.
I get your point, Mayor, but that would take forever.
Right, but-
Going back and forth between a council meeting every 2 weeks, waiting to hear back from the customer.
Well, but it's the entire city that's at stake. You know, where the previous MOU was written in there that it was adequate power. That's like writing an open checkbook. So I know it doesn't say that in this one, but for me, Good Life Realty, I'm not really sure who they are. I don't know where this is going. There's just a lot of unanswered questions. Sean?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, but my understanding of an MOU is a contract to negotiate a rate. We are not obligated to pay the 3.1. They're just, or to even like have that much available for them. This is saying that we are coming in to negotiate what we can do and what they are wanting and how much it's gonna cost them and us. And they're putting down $35,000 to cover most of our costs. And it doesn't really matter personally who the business is that's trying to buy power from us. I mean, we're a utility, we're here to sell power to businesses. They're an established business in this town. They've been here, they're the main users of our power right now, so having actually a MOU to negotiate a rate is actually better than what we currently have, which is nothing, them just using 2-ish megawatts of power already. So they're asking, we're asking for this now to increase it a little further, which is, I think, a net benefit for us. And it, like, do we need to know what every single business is in this town? We probably should have an idea, but like, we're not, like, it's not our job to gatekeep local businesses.
Well, I think it's a council's positions to look over the city and make sure that if a Good Life Realty comes in, council should have a full understanding of who they are exactly. But you mentioned that, you know, who they are, but this is a group that, I mean, this is a lot of power. This is something not to be taken lightly.
That we're not
And they should,
guaranteeing that.
right,
We're
but they
just
should be here to present themselves, so council can ask them questions before we even get to this point.
Before we even start negotiating, we want to negotiate.
No, they need to come and present, that
That's part of the
business
negotiation.
should
We
come
want
in.
them to negotiate getting power from us before we sign an agreement to negotiate.
But you want us to sign an agreement without really having a full understanding of what the business does.
Is it
What's our,
non-binding?
this agreement is non-binding and it's just to start a negotiation and for them to pay for the negotiation.
So my question is, this seems like simple math to me. It costs us nothing to enter into a negotiation. Potentially, we can make a lot of money off of them, like from electricity. So I don't understand the reservations here. I mean, what could, I mean, please explain to me, Jordan, you're the expertise in this. Like, what are we, no, I mean, like, no, but like, as long as we put out a good faith effort to negotiate and we can't come together, then we walk away.
Yeah, we have zero risk in entering this. They give us $35,000, paid for any attorney fees, any costs associated with it. If we get 4 months down the road and we go, this isn't gonna work, we give them whatever deposit they have left and we go on. We've lost nothing other
So
than
what's
some of my time.
the revenue that we would generate from 3.1 megawatts?
About 300,000.
Yeah, about 300,000.
And what is the amount of megawatts after we get the new upgrade that we're gonna have in the new upgrade?
If we, the new EDA grant, if we get what we want, we'll have about 35 megawatts more.
And I appreciate Mayor Fallon's reservations about, well, who is this company? And I also appreciate they're paying for the expert attorneys to help us negotiate, that I think we will, I like this idea of they're paying, so we get these expert attorneys behind this as well.
Where is this expansion going? Is it in
Dennis,
Flex 6?
no, Dennis Snyder's property.
And where?
It's actually right next to our current substation.
So his compound?
Yeah.
I don't wanna call it compound, but his.
Backside of his property.
From Herman Creek to the bridge,
Yeah.
the other side of Bear Mountain.
Well, yeah, no, I know, I mean, but like, where is it, are they taking over his warehouse? Or-
No, they're doing it, it's like what said, Councilor Miller, it's container cars outside along Highway 84, right next to our current substation.
So the noises won't be next to any residential person that's gonna have a problem with it. What you said, why the court said no, something
Yeah,
about,
because they had to build sound barriers.
yeah.
Well,
Like that.
there's the whole subdivision that overlooks Snyder. That whole rim overlooks Snyder. So sound is a factor.
Depending on how loud it is.
Yeah.
Both that would be addressed and then we can negotiate.
Yeah. So right now, how do you stop what is a permitted project? Right, because they're already in operation. And they have the legal right to buy the power. You could put the city into litigation by just cutting them off. You know, we have to go through a negotiation process. So, and this MOU is the start of it.
I guess what I'm saying, I just would have liked it to see them come and present in person.
Well, they
And
don't,
that's, so it's not cutting them off. I'm not saying, but I just would have liked to see them present.
well, after this MOU goes out, before they do anything else, they will have to come here and present.
Oh, yeah.
Because they can't go any further without it.
Yeah, the next step would be the actual power agreement, which at that point they would present, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they don't have to, but we've asked them
If they didn't, then they work with their.
I see that there's a hand up in the,
Carrie?
Yeah, I was just curious, with this business requesting 3.1 megawatts, that would put us over our high water mark with the current structure as it is, paying tier 2 rates. As our current structure exists now, wouldn't that expense get passed on to the residential customers?
No,
No.
not by what Mr. Farleigh said. He says we are over into tier 2 now. No, this would be a continuation of it.
So we're already paying for the cryptocurrencies being over the high water mark.
Yeah, the high water mark is actually 2.4.
The city is paying for it, not the residents.
And if this is actually the year they're looking for another high water mark,
Correct.
that might be good to have.
Well, we need to raise our high water mark so we can stay at the lower rate.
Right.
You know, and the way regional growth now is driving up prices, we've got to get on board somewhere here to start collecting money.
Well,
Otherwise, everybody else is going to
that's my
get it.
concern that I have, Butch, is we are seeming to become a haven for cheap
Yes.
electricity. And
That's because we have.
yeah, no, I mean, but
Right.
yeah, so how do we keep the residents where this cheap electricity does benefit and these increased costs pass them on to those that are generating that?
That's where we come in with the rate study.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, what I'm trying to say is I agree with you, Mr. Miller.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't wanna be known as the town that, oh, don't even try to get in at Cascade Locks with the business because they're just gonna say no and put you through a ringer and I'm feeling like that's beginning to happen. We're starting to get a reputation. It could just be in my head, but
Yep.
I want companies to come. We have to work out the electrical thing, no matter if it's business A or business B. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the MOU between the city and Good Life Realty LLC.
I'll second it.
Pete has his hand up.
Oh, it's great.
Discussion?
I was just curious, it says initial estimated demand is 3.1 megawatts. Over what period of time is that? Is that a month? Is that a day? Is that an hour? I mean, I don't know what the rate is for that, like.
So essentially, they have shelves in those containers and they sell the shelves and people will put their computers in there. So as fast as they can sell those shelf spots. It could take them a month, it could take them a year.
Well, it says on here, initial estimated demand is 3.1 megawatts. Where did that number come from?
Well, that's because they know we have a limited system. I mean, they will not go beyond that 3.1 until we have our update.
And is that 3.1 megawatts in a 1 month period?
If they can sell everything in time, yeah. I mean, they could possibly go from 0 to 3.
But I guess is that what they're proposing, that the most they could use in 1 month is 3.1 megawatts?
Yes, yeah, they wouldn't go any further, and we can put limiters on their meter that they won't go over 3.1.
And
Got it.
continue with this MOU and the attorney, can we request things like insulation, sound insulation? That's separate.
That's probably separate. This is my first one, so I guess I can find out.
And I think that might also be stepping on property owners' rights to use the property as it's zoned for, right? We've run into this before. We can't tell property owners what they can and can't do with their property so long as their use conforms to zoning. And Dennis Snyder's in an industrial zone. There are rules and regulations around noise pollution that would dictate what kind of activities are allowed or not allowed that they have to conform to. At least that's how I understand that.
But it is pushing us, without the new substation, this would be pushing us to maxing us out. Because it's, would you say how much the new, not quite a megawatt?
5.75 for the housing, yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't have to say 3.1. They want 3.1. That's their initial ask.
Yeah.
We can say 2
And we're
until we get this big upgrade.
And these guys have been, I mean, they're ready to go. They want to build yesterday. But they understand we are a small system and that there's times where we may have to, when Bear Mountain fires up their furnace, we might have to cut their megawatts down to 1. They are perfectly fine with that.
That doesn't hurt their business.
I'm sure it does, but I mean, they don't have to constantly be running. They're fine with having it cut down to 1 during the peak hours. I mean, they've been great and willing to work with us. I mean, they keep bugging me, but they've been great to work with.
There was a question from someone on Zoom. I didn't know if you saw that come through about AC usage and potentially pushing us into brownout.
When everyone is running their AC in peak summer and the city's up to 7+ megawatt hours, could this 3.1 megawatt push us to brownouts and stress out current infrastructure? So our 7 peak megawatts during the winter when people are running heaters, not during summer. And I don't know about brownouts. It would definitely stress our system, but again, these guys understand during the winter, we can cut their allowable power. I mean, they are willing to work with us.
So those are the things we could write.
Yes, yeah, we can limit how much they use, when they use it.
We can ask for it.
They've talked about putting in like a, what's the word? Live meter reading. So we have a meter that knows exactly how much is going through our system at one time. And it will tell their computer, their meter to stop accepting power. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of them connecting directly to our system in that way, but that's what we have engineers for. I don't see any loss in at least going into this MOU. None whatsoever.
And Jordan, where's that listed in the MOU about us being able to restrict their energy usage?
Well, would that be part of
I don't know if it's
negotiation?
in the MOU, but it would be in the power agreement.
Has everyone had a chance to read the entire MOU? Anyone has?
Okay, hey, I found that it's paragraph 5, section B, subparagraph I, maximum demand, and it is written in there about we have the obligation to provide retail electric service to the project, and it shall be subject to the maximum peak demand limit to be established by mutual agreement of the parties based upon the needs of the project and the capacity of the city's electrical system.
Yeah.
So actually, it's really lenient on us to choose and negotiate what we can give them.
Yeah.
So did we have a motion and a second?
We did.
There's been a second, and there's been a motion and a second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Councilmember Compton,
Aye.
Emily Baker. Aye. Farrell.
Aye.
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
No, I'm gonna be the only no. That's okay. All right, that passes. All right, so let's see. Approve reorganization of finance department.
Okay, so like it says in the report, after the departure of the finance officer, gave us a chance to really look at the responsibilities. I've discussed with City Recorder Woosley, who's taken on a lot of the day-to-day items, our contracted CFO and now CFO administrative staff. I mean, they do this stuff every day. A lot of the work that needs to be done is a accounting specialist, accounting positions, not CFO positions. I mentioned it a little bit at the last meeting. We can't afford to pay a CFO to be an accounting clerk. So it makes more sense financially for the city to go back to a accounting clerk position and contract out the CFO duties as needed. I did break out a cost. I did email you and printed out an updated sheet. So the finance department's changed quite a bit in the last year. It's this one here. So the 2023 approved budget, the finance officer, a receptionist, and an accounting clerk. Spreadsheet has the salary, insurance, and PERS amount for a total, and this included the family plan for insurance, because not knowing who we're going to hire, they might be a single person, they might be a family. I'd rather err on the side of a family. $291,000 compared to current system of a finance officer and a utility billing clerk of 230, and then going to the proposed is 232. The number is a little different. I made some more progress on our budget, and I actually adjusted the amount for the contract CFO down. So that's why there's a difference. So it saves us money in the long run. To me and to everybody else, it makes more sense to go back to an accounting clerk and not have a CFO full-time. I also have the updated job description with a new salary that matches salary around the region, and I was gonna put a spreadsheet together and I did not get to it, so my apologies there. And then an updated org chart. Pete had noticed an error I had in the one in the packet. The utility billing clerk does not report to the accounting clerk. I gave you a new copy. It's got some squiggly lines, so both finance positions report to the city administrator.
So with this proposal, the new, would what we want to offer hourly, would that be competitive?
Yes, yeah.
So do you think we would have a good chance of filling that position? Are we offering enough?
I think so. It's a crazy labor market right now, especially in the world of accounting. But I think we can get somebody, yes.
I appreciate your thinking outside of the box on this, because that's something that I think is.
I mean, we still need CFO level work to assist with audits, with budget forecasting, you know, making sure, instead of just going from one budget year to the next, where are we gonna be in 5-10 years? When do we do these rate studies? So we're not going, oh crap, BPA is raising the prices. When do we look at raising property taxes? That would be what the CFO would do.
And since they're contracted, we're not paying PERS insurance.
Correct, yeah. And
So they
we can
have a
tell-
higher rate.
Yes. Yeah, their rate is, they're $200 an hour. It's a lot. It's a lot. But again, we only hire them when we.
So it could be more, it could be less, but we're hoping it to be with the accounting clerk, hoping it to be significantly less. because
Correct.
Most of the things we're having the CFO do now are what an accounting clerk would do.
Yes, AP, AR, payroll, bank reconciliations, I mean, was all of their time.
with the addition of this, account clerk, now Carrie was given additional duties with Dave here.
Correct.
Now, does she keeps those additional
Yes,
duties?
yes, her job will not change, yes.
Got it.
She takes on, or keeps more of the utility, she's essentially running utility bill.
Okay.
Councilman Happy?
Okay, I just had a question regarding the PDF that was attached to the email with the updated numbers for the finance department. We've got the positions and the rows, and then the first column, we have 22, 23. That's what's in the budget. Is that right, Jordan?
This current budget, well, yes, this current budget.
Got it. And then the middle column, current, is what we have. What is current? Because that's not what we're currently doing.
That was the change that was approved in December. When we
see.
eliminated the accounting clerk, or smushed the receptionist and accounting clerk into the utility billing position.
Got it. And so really what, thank you, that explains it. So then by adding the accounting clerk and then having the utility clerk, billing clerk working together, that will reduce the amount we're gonna need to use the contract CFO for to $41,600,
Yes.
which is the 300 hours.
Yeah, it's not much. They're very expensive.
Well, I guess actually you had on here 300 hours was $60,000, so it's actually less than 300 hours in this table.
Yeah, let me do really quick. 4,160 divided by 200, that comes, whoa, that's
It's like $200 an hour.
yeah. Essentially comes to 4 hours a week, which is not much, but when, they would help with the audit. When I'm not able to do it, they would help me finalize the budget. They would help with forecasting. And it could ebb and flow. It might go 2 months where we don't need them at all. And then we kind of bank it all for one time of the year.
And do we get one person assigned to this?
We've had one person assigned. They have been good about when stuff they don't deem finance officer level, they'll kick it down to like a junior accountant. So they have done that a bit, but for the most part, we've had one person. Which again, not guaranteed, but so far that's what we've had.
They're not gonna have to relearn.
Correct. And Hood River County uses them also. And they've had the same lady, I think, for 2-ish years. So they keep pretty consistent folks at each client.
Well,
Is this, I don't understand, this is a world I don't understand, so please help me. Is this like the firm to go to, or is this the only firm to go with?
So we actually don't have to go with this firm. We hired them in an emergency situation. I actually need to double check with Ruben to see if we need to put an RFP out. So yeah, yes, this is just kind of going the contracted CFO route. I use that $200 as kind of the basis to build in the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion or? Is there a motion?
I will mention that this.
Well, I
is
guess,
also-
oops, sorry, Jordan, there's a little lag.
I was gonna say that these numbers are also in the budget that I just kicked out to everybody today.
And do we need to amend the recommended motion to have the caveat about conferring with the city attorney about setting this to RFP? I mean, I guess in here it says approving and reinstating approving the amended organizational chart, which includes CFO now, but you're saying that we might need to send that to does the amended, I guess it doesn't have anything about CFO on the amended organizational chart, does it?
No. Say that again, sorry, I was reading.
I was just clarifying that would the recommended motion be appropriate if we need to send this out for RFP about CFO now?
Yes, correct, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I motion to approve the finance department reorganization by eliminating the finance officer position, approving and reinstating the updated accounting clerk position and amended organizational chart.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussion?
I will, if it's approved, I will take down the finance officer recruitment, put up the accounting clerk one, and notify all applicants of the finance officer positions.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote?
Councilmember Crompton,
Aye.
Emmeline Baker. Aye. Farrell. Aye. Happy,
Aye.
Keller.
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mayor Fallon.
Aye, it passes. Okay,
Okay, council?
parents have interested citizens to share a variety of perspectives on issues facing our community.
Council Mayor, I appreciate you doing the rate study. I think it's an important thing to do to get a good base on what's going on there, and especially the power company. It's your biggest company and probably your most expensive company too to try to operate. So I think it's important to track what's going on the rate. But I've got a question on from Jordan, whether I'm right or wrong here. So I'm not sure whether I'm right or wrong, but we get the rates from BPA, and part of that rate is tier 1, part of that rate is tier 2. And we established it. Do they bring that all together? Then usually we come up with the cost from Bonneville is, I won't say megawatt, I'll do 1 kilowatt. That's what it is, a kilowatt. It's around 3 something a kilowatt. And is that 3 something have a combination of tier 1 and tier 2 in it to create that 3 cents?
Yes, they do. They put them together for a combined tier 1, tier 2 rate, kind of how it evens out across all of it.
But they're both in there to create that. Tier 1 and tier 2 are creating their 3 cents.
Right, I need to double check it, I believe.
That's my question, because if it is, you've got a rate from Bonneville that you look at as being 3 cents. And that's our base that we do everything from, whether it's for the home, or for commercial, or for industrial. And if a piece of that, the tier 2 is 2/3 of that, and your tier 1 is 1/3 of it, then, and you're passing that on to the commercial too, and you're passing that on to the industrial, they're all getting a piece of the tier 1 price, and that's where somebody should be, where if the tier 2 is 2/3 of that, these guys we should see what the 2 are and in a rate study and make sure that the commercial people are getting their tier 2 and industrials getting tier 2, not benefiting from the 2 of them being mixed together in our base rate when they're doing that. Because that becomes fair. And if you want to go down to say, okay, what is a tier 1? And we're going to charge, yes.
I apologize for interrupting, but is this the time where is this the subject that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, just talk. It says general things.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out.
Okay.
That was just general thing. So the other part of that is in doing your rate study, I think it's important to take a look at the world today. The world today for power is people are coming after you if you start fire. 2003, our power company broke a line out here in East town. It started a fire that on an east wind that took out 2 houses down. But at that time, they weren't looking at that. And then we had a fire down here, where just below us here, and probably 2010 or something. My numbers may not be exactly right there. A bird got zapped on a power line, power pole, fell at the bottom of the pole where there's lots of grass, and took off a fire and almost took out all of the loop down here. Then the fire department got there the people were actually exiting the house. Like Zerky was exiting his house because he could say, we're done. But the fire departments from all around us got there in time to put that out, created from a bird who got fried on a power line and started out fire. So there's 2 of them. So all I would say is go around your power system, if you guys would, and look at your poles, look at what's going on between your thing as far as cleanups. Because anything happens that's created from a power line, because the state law says you have to have a certain diameter of clearance around the bottom of the pole, and they certainly don't want things up in the power line.
No.
And I know the only way we're gonna get this is with a contractor to do it, but just when you're doing your rate studies and all that, I would say, what is it gonna take, what's it gonna take to help, keep our system clean, because we're in a whole new world of they're going after you nowadays.
Right.
It's something that they didn't then, it wasn't then. We got by, we lost 2 houses in one of them, but in this day and age, they're coming after you, so. Look at your system, and I think you would see, hey, we need to take it, that may bump the rate up, in my opinion, bump the rate up to try to at least do the prudent thing of how you manage the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Doesn't look like it was gonna be online.
Okay. Report presentations.
No committee reports tonight.
Okay, and then we moved Kevin up. Do you want to move Denise before your report, or?
Sure, yeah, that works.
Denise?
I wanna, Kim Brigham couldn't be here tonight to speak as a representative for the family of, the missing child from the locks. And, wanted to report that there is still family that will remain until they recover, the 19-year-old young man. And they're getting smaller in numbers. And they appreciate the respect that's been given by the court, by the community. Not much happening in fundraising, she says, so I want to put out that Umpqua Bank is taking funds to help with the search and recovery, as well as Brigham Fish Market. More donations of food is also good. You can bring those to Brigham Fish Market as well. And they want to thank those who have, and a lot of people have been anonymous, and I know Mayor Fallon and I have been down, and they were very happy with the support from the community, which was, they had intertribal services and command, which are leaving today, so it would be just the family.
Is the food for the family or for also for the people that are still searching?
Searching as well. But that is come down, Kim says, to mostly the family. So, and then appreciated that, I don't know if y'all heard, but the port approved the intertribal agreement to give 4 RV spaces at the port for 6 days. So they're going for 2 more days. And then we had donors that got some hotel till today. And so I imagine Kim knows to put out an ask if she needs more.
Anybody have questions, I just go through Kim as far as needs, and then she'll communicate exactly what they need, and then you can get them to Kim, and she'll get them right to the right guy.
To be respectful.
Kim is with Brigham in case anybody doesn't know.
Yeah,
Kim,
yeah, all right. Thank you very much, appreciate that. All right, City Administrator Bennett.
Okay, I emailed out last week, BPA has approved our purchase of the Cascade Lock substation. So the paperwork for that will be finalizing, probably not soon, but it's in the works. So the first big hurdle for our electrical system update has passed, finally. So that is moving forward. Garbage containers, I was hoping to get it on the agenda tonight. Hood River Garbage is willing to lower that monthly rate increase from $7 to $4 per month. Their ask is to have a 10-year contract, a rolling 10-year contract instead of 5, which essentially means their contract renews every year. And we can say, we want to cancel your contract, they go, great, we still have 9 years left in our contract. That's how they're gonna recruit their money. We may hate them, but they're still our garbage person for 9 more years.
But they're the only option.
I'm sure we could put an RFP out. I don't know what we get. I don't know what Stevenson uses. I don't think anybody from Troutdale or Gresham or anywhere's gonna come up here. They're kind of the only ones in town, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I thought that Jim Winterbottom was fantastic with his presentation. And he did a really good job of answering our questions, which I thought were really tough at times. And I thought he conducted himself really professionally. And so I just want to, and I really appreciate the fact that they've taken that from $7 a month to $4. That's a significant win for us. Do you see a real cost or danger to accepting this? I mean, we've been happy with their services. Do you see an issue with, I guess, accepting their change to a 10-year rolling contract?
I don't. The issue we came across was kind of some wording in the ordinance. They were kind of treating our city ordinance as a contract and actually putting their name in our ordinance, which is not something we want to do. So that was kind of the holdup. That's the main reason I wanted to go through that again, talk with our city attorney and make sure we get it right. But I don't see any downside to this.
Thanks, Jordan.
So to move forward with that, we still need to change an ordinance to require the rolling card.
Correct, yes. It essentially what it do is specify the type of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the garbage.
I was just gonna say, I've been kind of doing my own informal poll whenever I'm just talking to people. I bring this up. I've been asking people what their thoughts are on it. I think it would be really helpful for all of us to do that. The more people we all talk to about it, I think more confident we're all going to feel that we have some buy-in from the community to support this. But I heard nothing but support from people, even at $7 a month.
All right.
I also mentioned in the email, our grant for DOE was approved. We're waiting on the grant from FEMA. I guess it's the state is involved somehow. This was submitted before my time, so I need to look into it more. But my next step is to reach out to FEMA and hopefully get some kind of answer before December, because they told us anywhere between June and December, which is not helpful. DOE is willing to help with us a little bit on that timeline, but we do need to give them an answer sooner than later whether we're actually going to accept the award or not. I don't know if you all know, there was a fire out by Herman Creek May 14th, Sunday, started at roughly 11 a.m. Chief Logan received a call at 11:15, was on scene by 11:17. Cascade Locks Fire, Hood River Fire, Y East Fire, Stevenson Fire, North Bonneville Fire, U.S. Forest Service, and Oregon Department of Forestry all responded to one little 2-acre fire. I now know where all my tax money goes. But he would, 8 hoses were ruined. They were out on the, I don't know exactly where, but it was essentially on a very steep hillside where most of the fire was at. They were fighting it, the wind shifted, they dropped the hoses and ran. So hoses got ruined, everybody's alive. They closed the scene at about 5:30, so he's taking Friday off, took Friday off.
He said he was really surprised on how fast it went. The fire was moving, and that we were really lucky that this fire didn't happen in like August or September. When
Yeah,
things
and
were-
I haven't heard anything about what's stirring. So.
Yeah, they haven't.
Budget, I did get the budget out here this afternoon, electronic version. I'm putting hard packets together. Hopefully, if I have to, I will hand deliver them to people on Wednesday. We're printing them out, putting them in binders and all that. And it's kind of on my other matters. I would like to get our first budget meeting set for the 31st and get the word out for that. The IT RFP closed on the 5th. We opened the bids on May 9th and reviewed them at our department head meeting. We've reached out to the bidders for clarifying questions. Staff will score and present results to council at the June 12th meeting. I did have the IT director from Hood River County go over them to actually make sure it was made sense IT wise. I don't know anything about that world, not my thing. They said it was good. So there's no concerns about actually providing the services we want. What it's gonna come down to is price and level of on-site service are kind of the two things that really will matter to us. Community vision process, the survey closed on Friday. I did talk to Amanda, said we got 115 surveys, which is pretty good for us, not as many as we were hoping. I was hoping for closer to 150, but 115 is still pretty good. I think that puts us at like 8%, give or take, somewhere in there. Did hold a 2-hour business owners focus group in here this morning, had 8 business owners in. Discussion was not too pleasant towards the city on working with the city in planning, all the red tape that goes on. And so they're gonna take all that plus the survey, the open house, and kick it out to council to review. Let's see here. Offices, oh, on the backside. The letter, the pre-enforcement notice, back on December 12th, we had some sewage bubble up from the sewer manhole between the old hardware store and Gorgeous Beer. If I remember right, a root had grown through and blocked the sewer line. Sheldon saw it first thing in the morning. We got a vac truck, cleaned it up, fixed it. DEQ's got to do their thing, and we still might get a fine. I don't think, other than us being a little more proactive and scoping the lines every 5 years and making sure nothing was growing, I don't know what else we could have done. I mean, they were on it right away. So we may not get a fine, but we might. So
They say it would cost it.
a root grew through.
So this is separate than the one that I don't remember.
The $9,000 one we paid earlier, yeah, completely separate. Yeah. And so, again, I don't know where it's gonna go. On that note, we have the temporary treatment plant up and running for our project, and it's been having issues the last few days. It did release some untreated effluent, I think that's the right word, effluent into the Columbia River. So we've been keeping DEQ updated as things happen, so I don't know where that's gonna lead, but that fun is happening as well. I'll be out of office May 5th and probably working remotely a couple days that week as I finish moving my family over. June, what did I say?
You said May.
May, June 5th, sorry.
Right.
June, yeah, no, don't go back. Offices will be closed May 29th for Memorial Day. I do want to remind council that the main form of communication is through email, so please make sure you're staying up on your emails. And then the backhoe. The backhoe was taken to Pape Machinery. It needs a lot of work. Sheldon went through the quote, narrowed it down to about $4,500 worth of work to fix some of the play in the bucket and get the engine running correctly. Our hope is to get it to a point where we can actually get some kind of value out of it. In the budget I just sent out was to buy a new backhoe, because it needs to be replaced. So I guess my question is, under the finance policy, it needs to be approved by council because it is $4,500. I don't know if you guys want me to come to you every time there is something, a repair over $2,500. I don't know the reasoning behind why it was set at that limit, but nothing is that cheap anymore. Any kind of repair is gonna be over that amount, so.
He's gonna look into leasing though too, right? Instead of buying one.
He said something, I can't remember what it was now. It wasn't feasible, but we can present to you guys as well. Yeah, I mean, we'll present.
And the repairs are needed to continue any work that we have for this summer.
It's dead in the water, yeah,
Okay.
until we get the engine actually running properly, it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
So is the ports. So there's no, other than Dennis Snyder's, there's no operational backhoe in this town.
Oh, boy.
Yes. And that's all I have.
Are they gonna be able to do that within a reasonable amount of time, get it fixed?
And that I don't know. I mean, it's a repair shop. It could be a while.
I had a question about the DEQ, stuff.
Yes.
Did you ever find out who should be at fault for that earlier spill, since we do contract our services out to a agency, whether or not they're technically liable?
The only way they would be reliable is if it was a willful neglect on their end.
Okay, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and it wasn't, yeah. Yep, that's all I got.
Okay. So we're at that time, we're gonna move into executive session. And the purpose is Mr. Bennett's review. And
We will close open session. And so we have to actually vote to go into executive session, correct, Mariana?
I don't believe so.
I thought we did. I thought we did.
It says at the commencements of each commencement,
Trying to remember.
citing officer must state the record purpose of the executive session. Information is confidential, may not be reported. If this is not done, proceedings may be reported. So I did declare what we were doing for executive session.
So how do we keep Pete and kick everybody else out?
Yeah.
Except for Pete.
Except for Pete.
And just want to give you guys a heads up. It's I've got about 10% of my battery left on my computer, so
All right.
I'm
Okay, yeah, we adjourn wait, yes, adjourn regular meeting will move into executive session, but you don't need a motion.
You don't, okay, we don't need to, okay, all right,
All right,
Motion
thank
to
you.
adjourn.
and move into an executive session.
Move into an executive session.
I started that motion.
Thank
Very
you for everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Are you expecting any motion after the executive session?
No.
No,
Great. See you guys. Have a good night.
I thank you. Thank you.
Hang on a second.
And I'm gonna make a quick, which will pass this down. Pete, did you take a look at your email?
I did.
And I have mine didn't get included.
Yep, I don't think mine got included either.
No, I was curious about that.
Completely based on different things. I've been busy with things.
No, I haven't seen it, no.
Everyone, I have a stuff real quick.
Yeah.
Do we want to copy mine for everybody, or do we just want